Welcome to the SAFeTy Chronicles, exploring how to keep people and pets safe from the cycle of interpersonal violence. I am your host, Allie Phillips, founder and CEO of Sheltering Animals and Families Together, the SAFeTy Program, a nonprofit organization working with domestic violence shelters to eliminate the pet housing barrier to safety. As the founder, I have led the global movement in helping domestic violence shelters create on-site pet housing while elevating the criminal justice response to how animal abuse links to crimes against people. I am a former prosecuting attorney, internationally recognized legal expert and public speaker, award-winning author, and advocate for protecting vulnerable victims. In this podcast, we will explore how and why animals are harmed in the cycle of family violence and the human-animal bond that keeps victims in harm's way with their pets. Guest speakers and I will share strategies for shelters and professionals working to safeguard survivors, why pet-inclusive sheltering is life-saving, and safety tips for those who need help. None of the content will be graphic. If you are in harm's way, please contact your nearest domestic violence shelter or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the SAFeTy Chronicles. So this is Rudy. Rudy likes to sit on the back of my chair when I have Zoom calls and Zoom classes, and we'll see how long he wants to stay here today. But today I want to talk about how pets can support all of us during trauma, and even talk a little bit about therapy animals. So there are two foundational principles to the SAFeTy program. One of them is understanding how animal abuse links to family violence. You know, violence is violence. Okay, there goes Rudy. Violence is violence, you know, whether it's committed against a two-legged or four-legged member of the home. So understanding that is a core foundation of the SAFeTy program. The second core foundation is understanding the human-animal bond in the process of recovery and healing and being resistant. And, you know, we lean on our pets during times of trauma and crisis, during times of illness, sadness. You know, they come to us. They are very therapeutic in nature, whether they are officially trained as a therapy animal. And so when someone has experienced violence, whether it's physical or emotional, their pets can be a mechanism for recovery and resilience and strength and going through the healing process. And that is especially true for children. It is that bond with a pet that is often what the abuser will target in order to take away the support that pets naturally offer. Pets are naturally therapeutic. So in the comments below, if you're listening to this, I would love to know how many pets you have. So right now I have 3 cats. I have 3 cats. They're very popular on social media. Me, not so much, but on social media, they are popular, especially with my other business that I have. And, you know, so pets are naturally therapeutic to us. And therapy animal organizations are abundant across the United States and internationally. There is a phenomenal international organization. We nickname it IAHIO. It's the International Association of Human-Animal Bond Organizations. And it's all about the bond that we have with animals. And there's a lot of therapy animal organizations in that group. So therapy animal organizations work in a variety of settings. They go into, you know, hospitals, hospice centers, pediatric centers, child advocacy centers, which is one of the specialties that I used to teach on. They go into schools, they go into libraries to help kids with reading, and they respond to traumatic incidents like school shootings. So I want to talk about therapy animals because I want to talk about how, as a domestic violence shelter, you can invite therapy animal teams into your shelter. But I also just want to talk about the natural therapeutic benefit that pets bring us. So I kind of got two different purposes for this episode. So therapy animals are not legally defined under the law. Like, they're not in the American Disabilities Act like a service animal is. And that's going to be another episode, because I know that there is a lot of confusion about animals that domestic violence shelters can take and must take. Okay. Therapy animals, because they are not legally defined, they provide a therapeutic support to people. Therapy animals are not covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and they are welcome in public settings by invitation, not by a legal right. Okay. So therapy animals are family pets who have gone through a process of testing and getting registered with their handler, who is their pet parent, to make sure that they're appropriate to work with certain populations like children or in trauma situations. These are animals, kind of like my cats, who want to be around people. They want to be pet, they want to be touched, and they're there to provide a therapeutic benefit. I provided, or I started a program. Oh my gosh, I think this was back in 2008 when I was working for the American Humane Association. I co-created a program called TASK, Therapy Animals Supporting Kids. You can find it on my website, alliephillips.com. You can download the task manual. I'm sure if you just Google it, you can find the manual everywhere. And that concept was launching the concept of how to help children go through the court process, whether criminal or civil, from start to finish, from like their first interview to a medical exam to a forensic interview to testifying in court, and providing therapy animals along the way. So, I have been in this therapy animal world for a while, and I see the benefits. I see the benefits of our own family pets, of what they offer to us, but I also see the tremendous benefits of what therapy animals can provide. So I want to touch on just a little bit of the research. Those of us who have pets, we know the therapeutic benefit that they provide to us. But there is really good research that documents the effect that animals and companion animals have on us. So there was an article on NPR. I'll put the link in the comments. Just in August of 2023, that was talking about how petting other people's dogs, like not your dog, other people's dogs, like a therapy dog, how that can boost your health by dropping cortisol levels. So cortisol is your stress hormone. It's your fight or flight. So when you are in an abusive situation or a traumatic situation, your cortisol levels are going to skyrocket. It's going to lead to adrenal fatigue and hormone imbalance. That's actually getting into the health and wellness business that I have. But high cortisol levels are dangerous to the body. So petting another person's dog can drop your cortisol levels after just 5 minutes of interaction, and it raises your oxytocin levels, which is your feel-good hormone. And the study also found that the dog's oxytocin levels increase. So, kids who have interaction with dogs twice a week have less stress, improved executive function, especially in school, and have less distractions in school. So it's going to help them be a better student, do better with homework, and do better with focusing. There was also a study in 2012 where 18 dogs were exposed to 3 types of groups of people. One group had people that were crying, a second group had people that were humming, and a third group had people that were talking. And most of the dogs approached and touched the humans who were weeping, as opposed to the people who were humming. And no dogs responded at all to people who were talking, which I found was very interesting. So it just demonstrated that animals instinctively will come to a human when they're in crisis, when they're in trauma, when they're sick, when they're sad. And there is a host of research documenting how therapy animals and animal-assisted interactions help build rapport, especially if you're talking, if let's say you are a domestic violence survivor, or you have a child who has been maltreated. It helps with rapport with those who are trying to help you, police, prosecutors, forensic interviewers, social service, um, professionals. It's going to help with that rapport. It's going to promote engagement. Therapy animals help facilitate communication because they lower the cortisol levels. Because when you can lower your stress, you can actually think and remember. This is why I'm a big advocate of therapy animals in the courtroom, because as a former prosecutor, there is nothing more important than getting accurate, complete testimony. And when a witness is stressed, they can't do that. They have very bad recall. And that's not justice for anybody. So I'm a big advocate of that, for therapy animals, promoting communication. But therapy animals, it's documented that they reduce anxiety and stress. They naturally offer comfort. They provide non-judgmental acceptance. This is so powerful for anybody who has been in an abusive situation, especially children. I mean, this is going back to the days when I spent a lot of time training child protection professionals on interviewing children, getting children ready for court, and helping children understand that they are not the only child in the world that it happened to. And so that non-judgmental acceptance from therapy animals really helps a child open up and talk. And therapy animals also provide healing touch. For somebody who has been in an abusive situation, touch is not a good thing. And so therapy animals actually re-engage the healing benefit of touch. And therapy animals in a domestic violence shelter, in a child advocacy center, in a family justice center, actually improves the morale of staff. And then just one last study. So there was a study in 2014 that assessed therapy animal interactions with children undergoing a forensic interview. So a forensic interview is what happens when there has been a disclosure of criminal abuse or neglect, and the child is getting an interview, which is going to potentially be a part of a criminal prosecution. And so forensic interviewers are specially trained on how to interview children in a very specific protocol that doesn't result in any suggestion to them. It allows the child to feel safe and comfortable to talk. And so this study was looking at children going through the forensic interview process, and the saliva was tested for the stress hormone, the cortisol stress hormone. And they had the kids in different groups, and kids who were petting and talking to the therapy animals had lower heart rates during the interview, which means lower stress levels. And when there's lower stress levels, there's better recall. So lots and lots of amazing studies out there. And so, therapy animals can be a great addition to a domestic violence shelter, especially for children in the shelter who know that there are pets there, but for safety reasons cannot see them or cannot touch them. That is a core policy of the safety program, to make sure that nobody gets bitten or scratched by a pet who, has strangers around them. So there can be children in shelter that know that down the hall, there's a family that has a dog or a cat, and they want to see the dog or the cat. Maybe they miss their pet. When a domestic violence shelter can invite therapy animal teams into the shelter to work with those kids, it's therapeutic, it's healing, but it's also giving them that benefit of just being around animals. And, when we're with a therapy animal, we literally go into their world and live in the moment. So it'll take a survivor out of the past and out of fear of the future. It puts them in the present moment, because in the present moment, that is where we create life. And when you're with a therapy animal, you actually become very present. So I want to talk just briefly about a couple of shelters that have therapy animals in the shelter. So there is a shelter here in my home state of Michigan in Howell. It's the La Casa shelter. They have been a safety shelter since, oh my gosh, I want to say since 2004. So they're going on 20 years. And they have a therapy dog named Penny. I had an opportunity to meet Penny a couple of years ago, and Penny is there. She's a beautiful black lab, and she is there to help the children who are receiving services, including being interviewed by forensic interviewers or police or social workers, and having to go to court. And she's just there for everybody, including the staff, because those who work in the field of domestic violence, you have stressful work that you're doing. I'm not saying anything that you already don't know. This can be a tremendous benefit to help you do the best in your job. So Penny is there at the La Casa shelter in Howell. In Tacoma, Washington, the Family Renewal Shelter has therapy pets on site that assist families with their transition out of abusive situations, including accompanying staff, like shelter staff members, at night to pick up a family in need when there's no police escort available or even wanted by the survivor. Just having the dog gives a sense of protection to everybody. And the shelter has other therapy animals as part of their therapy animal program for families who are in shelter. And then Safe Futures in New London, Connecticut, recently acquired a therapy dog named Luna. If you go to their website, they have a really cute video about their pet housing program, but it stars Luna. And Luna helps clients in the emergency shelter and transitional housing, and has really boosted morale, not only for the clients, but for the staff. So having animals come into your shelter with the families is therapeutic for the families who are in the process of healing and recovery, and it helps with resiliency. But also inviting therapy animal teams in to your shelter to help is also beneficial. So here in the United States, and I know, I've got an international audience here, and that's why that Ohio organization is very beneficial. You can go and look at their membership list and find, there are therapy animal organizations in Spain and England and Australia and Switzerland. You can go through their membership list and find help. But here in the US, therapy animal teams volunteer their time and they come with liability insurance. So that is a huge relief for the shelters. You don't have to pay for these services, and they come with the insurance protection. So it will cost you nothing to invite them in. And, so you can reach out to national therapy pet organizations like Pet Partners, petpartners.org, or just Google search in your area for therapy animal teams. I mean, there are tens of thousands of therapy animals across the United States, and there may be a small group in your area who is willing to come in and help. And this is just another way to support survivors of domestic violence through the powerful healing that animals bring us. All right, so I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'd love for you to post a comment. Was this beneficial? Was this helpful? If you actually are a therapy animal handler, I would encourage you to go volunteer at your local domestic violence shelter. Call them up, ask them if they would love your services. And if you are a domestic violence shelter provider, look into therapy animals, but also recognize that when you open up your shelter doors to families with pets, you are already providing a therapeutic value. All right, thanks for listening. If you are in harm's way and need help, visit the Pet Inclusive Shelter listing at SAFeTyProgram.org, call your nearest domestic violence shelter, or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233. Want to support our efforts and help us keep the Safety Startup Manual free for domestic violence shelters? Consider donating at SAFeTyProgram.org/donate. Your donation saves lives.